Hey everyone, Ben here and welcome to the formation lap of the Fanatec Fixed GT3 Challenge in iRacing. We've managed to put it in 6th place on the grid, so we've got a decent chance of a good result here. Look a little bit further down into the midfield and you'll see my SCB buddy Chris Rogers of CR Sim Racing is also lining up in this race, so it'll be interesting to see how we can both get on. But the green lights are about to go, the safety car peeling into the pits. Let's get down into the cockpit as we get underway, and immediately you can see we've lost a little bit of time to the car in 5th, but that is going to give us some space heading into T1, and it's all about just staying safe through this opening set of corners and hoping that everybody around us keeps their heads too. Heavy braking zone into the hairpin at the top of the little hill, and then get the car rotated. Cold tyres, cold brakes, so it's all just about nursing the car and getting things up to temperature before we start pushing, and hopefully we'll be able to pick up some positions as the race progresses. 20-minute race time limit in the fixed GT3 series here in iRacing, so a little bit longer than some of our 15-minute sprint races, and that is going to test our concentration as we get further into the race, as well as that of all of the other drivers on the grid. You can see a little bit of jockeying for position here. We're just having to spot our braking a little bit carefully, look for the brake lights of the cars up ahead, but don't get distracted by them. The biggest mistake you can make in these early stages is getting caught out by what other cars are doing, either because you're not paying enough attention or because you pay too much attention and you end up following another car into a mistake. So it's a really tricky balance to maintain, but we look like we've managed to get through relatively well on this opening lap, and we've held 6th position, so a good platform to build on. We can start looking at Paya and Seychelles and Laycock up the road to see if we can't try and get into a podium position. Down into Paddock Hill Bend once again, then just let the car run out as wide as you dare onto the outside curbing, but not too wide, and end up beached. We look like we're much stronger on the brakes than Paya up ahead into the hairpin, so maybe that will be a chance for us to get past in the laps to come. But for now, we are just following him through these corners, getting ready for the very tricky, slightly uphill left-hander here, where your exit is absolutely crucial because the back straight here is very, very long and deep. But look at that, Seychelles out of the race on the left-hand side there, clearly just got up onto the curbing, rotated the car, couldn't save it, and was into the barrier on the left hand side. We very nearly just about get alongside Paya at the same time coming down into the right hander, but very, very difficult to go side by side through there, and we were not fully alongside him, so no chance of making a move. I had to get out of it and live to fight another day. Here then is a quick replay of the incident with Seychelles just up ahead of us there. He's coming round the left hand, and you can see just by the smallest of margins gets up onto the curb just a little bit too far and then into the barrier. I mentioned I was joined on track this session by Chris Rogers from CR Sim Racing. Go check his channel out if you haven't already. I've left a link in the description. Unfortunately for him, on lap 3, the tiniest bit of contact with the car that he was fighting with ended up putting him out onto the gravel, and that was essentially his race ruined. We rejoin then about 7 minutes into this race, and it's as you were. We're in 5th position, having benefited from Seychelles' mistake. He's rejoined and is now back in 8th place, and we're still tracking Paya very, very closely up ahead. It's just so difficult to overtake on this track, but it is a brilliant contest between myself and Paya up ahead. We are really starting to push now one another to set faster and faster lap times, but unfortunately there is just no easy way past here. It feels to me as if I'm quicker than he is through the first part of the lap, and then he manages to extend the gap a little bit through this very fast section, and in part that's just due to the nature of the circuit. I'm having to give him just a little bit of room through these corners, because if you get too close in, too tight into the car up ahead, then you're really risking getting caught up in an incident should he make a mistake, or if you're just a little bit too aggressive, then you can very easily cause an accident yourself. So it's very, very difficult at this stage of the race. We're heading towards the midpoint of the race distance, but unfortunately I'm just not able to put enough pressure on at this stage in order to make a move. Meanwhile, as I'm putting pressure on Paya, this is the driver behind us, Knight, and he's going to make just about the same mistake as Seychelles did, but he manages to keep hold of the car. But it does mean he's going to lose a position to the Mercedes behind him and drop back into 7th position, which is a shame for him as he was beginning to reel us in just very slightly. Unfortunately, his race was going to go even worse after that small mistake. He passed again there for 8th position, and then as presumably he's trying to push to get back ahead of Seychelles up ahead, he ends up making a bit of a mistake heading into this left-hander, just misses his brake and gets up onto the grass, spins the car, and that is him well and truly back into the mid-pack. We rejoin then at just about the half race distance mark here, and still we are within half a second of Paya up ahead, so we're keeping the pressure on once again, much better and deeper on the brakes into the hairpin, but I need to be a few tenths of a second closer to him before we get to the braking zone if I'm going to make that count, because all it's doing at the moment is bringing me right onto his rear wing, but not close enough in order to make a passing opportunity. And now we have Esco behind us with about a second and a half of a gap back to him. A better run through that left-hander then than Paya up ahead. We might have half a chance once again down the back straight here. We're approaching the very sweeping fast right-hander up ahead. Unfortunately not close enough to stick one down the inside, and I'm trying to put a bit of pressure really on Paya to hope that he makes a mistake, because making a clean pass into these corners is nigh on impossible, particularly at full speed without somebody making a mistake. But speaking of mistakes, it looks like Gultekin up ahead has made a mistake, because he's dropped right the way back then from 2nd position. And let's have a look at what happened then on board with the BMW driver here. And yeah, look at that, he just runs out a little bit wide, gets his tyres up onto the sand, and that then is a big shunt into the barrier, and that has put him right back into contention with us. So maybe then there's going to be a chance of snatching an extra position here if both myself and Paya are able to get onto Gultekin's rear wing, as he must be carrying damage from that incident. So we've rejoined on the very next lap then. You can see the gap is really closing in now as we come through the right-hander once again, and unbelievably he's made the same mistake again. He's right up into the barrier. He doesn't rejoin across the track, so I'm grateful for that, and we are up into 4th position, and Paya takes the final podium spot. Here it is again then on a replay, identical mistakes, and this time if anything an even heavier shunt into the barrier. That is going to be his race ruin. Presumably he was nursing damage, and that was making the car even more difficult to control. Over the coming laps then, it was the same old story essentially. We were putting lots and lots of pressure on Paya up ahead to try and get him to make a mistake, try and force some kind of opportunity to be able to squeeze past. You can see just how close we're running to the car ahead, and this was the case for pretty well the entire race long. Unfortunately though, we just couldn't get close enough. We had a number of attempts to try and close in down this back straight, get into the draft and try and just force him offline or spook him into a mistake and running wide, but unfortunately he was pretty well impervious to it. This perhaps was one of our best chances. You can see just a little run wide from Paya up ahead there, which gave us the momentum coming out of the left-hander. You can see we're well within the draft. I'm going to show to the inside to try and just spook him off the racing line, but he hits his brakes very nicely there, and all we can do is get back on the racing line ourselves and tuck in behind. So that was the story of the race really. We're on the very last lap now. I'm still pushing, the gap is still around half a second, and I'm hopeful that maybe in the second half of this final lap we're going to see a mistake, and maybe we'll be able to have one final crack at making up into the final podium position. You can see Laycock not too far up ahead in 2nd position, but that's clearly out of the question now with just a few corners left. Esco has kept us honest behind as well. He's just half a second back now, as we've basically been a bit bunched up by Paya up ahead. But I think I've got enough to keep clear of Esco in 5th. Seychelles has recovered to 6th, and now we're coming through the final corner, clearly not close enough to make a move on Paya, but we're going to finish within half a second, and just a brilliant battle all race long. There we go, we take the checkered flag. Really, really intense racing here at Brands Hatch. Not a lot of overtaking action, but we were absolutely at the max all race long there, and a really good, honest battle with Paya. You can see there my friend Chris Rogers coming home in 16th. We came home in 4th. A really enjoyable race. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have and you want to see more iRacing action, check out the video on screen now. I promise You'll love it.